Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfuck Your Mind. I'm your host, Zach Lyotis. And in today's podcast, we have Angelito Marcos. Angelito is a holistic health practitioner, lifestyle coach, and wellness educator of the higher pursuit. His life was not always this way. His wellness journey began from his own personal challenges he endured in his younger years that left him feeling chronically fatigued, in tremendous physical pain, anxious, and depressed. He went seeking for answers to his mystery disease that was diagnosed by his doctors, who told him there was no solution to his condition. Through his trials and tribulations, he was able to heal himself through the education, mentorship, and guidance he obtained on the foundational human principles needed to live a life of balance, joy, harmony, and well-being. He's worked with some of the top health and wellness clinics and companies as a coach, mentor, and educator, facilitating experiences that enable groups and individuals create healthy relationship with their minds, bodies, and the world around them. Hello, Angelito.
Hello. It's good to be back for the third time.
I know. I was thinking that this morning. I'm like, third time the charm. It's the Holy Trinity time.
Yeah, that's it.
But sometimes we have to deal with things like that when Wi-Fi isn't working in a so-called third world country because it's something new. But yeah, I'm happy that you're here, and I'm happy we could have this beautiful conversation about you and what you've been through, what you're doing today, and how you're helping raise the vibrational frequency of humanity. So I want to go back to this because today I was saying to myself, I was saying something about being in a diseased state with my mind and my body. And not that I'm ill or anything like that, but I was so out of balance. And disease is not being in balance or harmony. So I want to go back to, you were looking for answers to heal this mystery disease that the doctors told you about, but you came up empty, from what I understand. So what is it? How is it that you needed to take the reins in your own hands and start becoming in control of your own health and life?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for many of us, we have to learn the hard way, and we have to get our world shaken up a little bit to allow us to come to a greater realization that the life that we're living is not one that's actually serving us. And, it's serving you, but sometimes we just don't pay attention enough.
Yes.
And, when you're talking about something like you're saying, like a disease-driven state, you're, out of balance and out of alignment, we're constantly getting communication from our bodies. They're the only relationship that will always forever be with us in this human experience, because we can't we can't live without it, right? That's just the cold hard truth. But, I think the difficulty in this modern society and how we're just constantly so overstimulated, overly bombarded, have so many distractions, we really start to lose our connection, and we don't listen, to our bodies, and we don't hear those, those little bit of pain sometimes that you feel it could be on your foot, or, just how you ate something, you feel a little bit off. And I pretty much took it to the extreme, you can say, in that point in my life, what kind of led to things being worse was that I had a surgery that was pretty devastating for me. I was playing basketball, and I got a really bad sprain, and this is the time where I pictured myself as pretty much being like, oh wow, this is like, I'm at like the top of my game, like physically, like feeling so good and so great. And this is after I just like, maybe a couple of years after losing about like 70 pounds of weight, being 240 pounds, you begin to gain what you think is confidence in a certain way, but sometimes it's rooted in a more place of like being attached to your physical body and the appearance and the aesthetics. And, I was guilty of that, right? Like I felt that like, whoa, like you're the fat guy, become muscular. And now you have this devastating injury where your ankle your wrist won't heal. And I just felt so broken. And after a year and a half or so, like it still wasn't healing without surgery. So that eventually led to more pain. And then I started feeling a little bit more fatigued, started feeling widespread body pain. And this was going on for like years on end, like to a point where I couldn't work anymore. I gave up. I had to stop my business. I wasn't making any money. And I was pretty much bedridden, just tired all the time. And I just didn't know what was going on, right? I saw these many practitioners and, chiros, you name it. And it was just like so overwhelming to the point where, like you mentioned, is being able to attach to the feelings that we're feeling and thinking that's who we are because you don't know anything else.
Yeah.
When you're in chronic pain, that's all that you feel. And yeah, when the doctor said that like you have fibromyalgia, which, I've heard of it before, but to say that it's something that you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life, like that shocked me, and it was only then till I just went into a deeper hole to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like the relationship has just passed that it was, about 3 years, but a year overdue from needing to end it. And it just felt like I lost everything in my world. But, through the gift of that, of sometimes you finally be able to step up and take some sort of action that is different from the world that you were living in. For me, it was chronic pain, depression, and anxiety. I just had this moment and this day after that breakup where I was like, please, like, can I get a little help over here? Like it's
break, please.
Yeah, it's a little lonely over here and I'm just hurting so much, and I just reached out to a friend who was into personal development and he said pretty much, I'm like, do you have like a book or something for me? I know like you're into like network marketing and I thought that was super weird at the time, and he's reading books like Think and Grow Rich and stuff. And he passed me a book by Jeff Olson and it was called The Slight Edge. And it was just something that I've never read before because for me, it was just, what you learn in school and academia of things that are like not really that relevant. And this was one of the most liberating things that I ever read because it told me that I was fully responsible of my life and I actually had an ability to create different choices. And just by persistently and patiently working on these little things, I could, eventually get towards doing the things that were meaningful to me and would able to heal my body. So yeah, that's kind of like that's kind of like a little gist of why I started making the changes. And slowly but surely, like even though I ate all the right foods and was like trying to do different things of like massaging my body and seeing practitioners, that mental piece just awoken something within me. And then slowly but surely my body started feeling better. And, it was a journey, long journey for sure.
And fibromyalgia just disappeared from your life and never showed up again. And it was one of those ghost illnesses that the doctor says, no, you never had that before. I don't know where that came from. And that's happened a lot of times. I know because I get it. Like I went through depression. I went through anxiety. I went through cancer. It hit me at once. I've been through cancer many times over. So I get when people say this. It's like, I had to hit rock bottom so many times in my life in order to be like, yo, what are you doing? Like, you know what you need to do. Why do you keep on falling back into this place? And, I was having this conversation with someone yesterday saying, I think the reason I fell into depression so many times, or I know the reasons, because I didn't allow my spirit to live the way it truly wanted to live like I do today. Right. And that's why we go into that state. It's like the disease is there because the spirit's dead. The spirit needs to come to life. And once that spirit comes to life, everything else becomes secondary and it becomes this most beautiful thing. So what types of modalities did you learn along the way?
It was a mix of everything really. I just became a lab rat of my own experience because I had a lot of things going on. Like I had, fatigue, I had digestive issues, I had pain in my body. And, so I think the modalities became a fusion. I would say in particular, probably some of the biggest things that really helped me get back into balance and be able to kind of, transcend that relationship that I had to the pain of that just being my life was, you can say it was like almost like Qigong in a sense, but it came naturally to me. Like I didn't even study Qigong or anything at all, but I just found peace in being able to go for a walk. And I would always go to, I recall specifically a place by my old home, and I would just set my feet on the grass over there. And this was like before, like people are talking about like earthing and do this. It's just something that intuitively like came to me. And I would just start literally like breathing and slowly moving my body and closing my eyes in particular. And that really just actually started to transform that relationship where before I would be scared and run away from my body, I actually started going into it and feeling the pain and listening to what was happening and then relaxing the nervous system. And I think from that place, it really just gave me a lot more, it was like the solid foundation I needed to do everything else. You know, like I was already eating organic foods, but then it's like, I was doing it under stress and out of scarcity. You know, I was already moving, but then in a place of like, how can I not feel the pain, as opposed to just like being more mindful what I did. So I would say like, that was probably like one of the biggest things for me. And then I think, journaling by far was probably like one of the most powerful things as well too. I think when you know, at least speaking from my experience, in my own personal life and also doing work with other people, being like a holistic health practitioner, is that you really begin to realize that before disease starts, there's usually some sort of underlying traumatic event or trauma that's kind of happened in the past. And it's like, it's not like that the disease just simply just pops up and shows up, you know. There's usually some sort of like highly stressful point that goes in so deep that it ends up becoming the way we're starting to perceive our life, and our psyche and our body is not separate. There can't be any separation between it. And I actually just had a lot of like holding patterns, and I started to realize like a lot of the fears that I was feeling in my body was related to a lot of trauma that I felt as a child and growing up as well too, you know. And the journaling, what it did for me, you know, which I never did before ever in my life until I started reading like books on personal development, is that it really created awareness, you know. And I think that's the key piece, like with any change process and anytime we need to be, you know, wanting to work towards transformation, like honesty is the number one thing, and honesty about everything that's happening in our life. And once we're able to see enough and be aware of what we're experiencing and how we're reacting to life, and, you know, our choices that we're making based on how we're perceiving the world or how people are treating us, it's like, wow, like, okay, like that's happening, but how am I showing up? And I realized like, oh my gosh, like I'm constantly reacting in a fearful way that's like shut down. And when I feel like I'm devaluating myself, I start to realize my throat and my neck starts getting tight. And when I notice like I'm feeling, you know, discomfort in certain areas, like this is how my ankle starts balking at me, or like when my knee's going there. And like, that was just like totally like mind blowing for me, you know, when I started to make these connections and see that. And it just kept me going. And like, okay, like study a little bit more, like learn about like the mind, body, spirit connection. And yeah, that was quite profound and one of the most liberating things, because it's just like, okay, like, what is that? What is the belief? What is the value? What is the perspective that I'm painting upon? And what is this in relation to this uncomfortable and fearful experience where I'm shut down in pain and hurt and everything that doesn't feel good?
Yeah, it's like, you know, I always feel this. What is the false identity I'm giving myself that's truly not who I am in my divine essence? Like, because we all have these false identities. And I love that everything is so simple, yet people make it so complicated, and they need to have a title for everything. You know, I've been doing this work since I was a kid, and people are like, so what do you do? And I'm like, I don't know, I talk to the air. Like, you know, when I first started out years ago, I had no idea what I was talking to, who I was. And this is, I mean, as a teenager, I'm talking, no. I didn't know who I was talking to, who was coming to me, why I was hearing these voices. My parents always told me it was bad. And I was just like, well, if that's bad, damn, it feels good. And I like that feeling of bad. That feels so good. But, you know, I started to learn and tap in even further and further and further. And, you know, I had this conversation with myself today about titles, how we have to feel entitled by boxing yourselves up in a certain title. And that drove me crazy, because I used to tell people, I'm bigger than being a psychic. I'm bigger than being a medium. I'm bigger than a spiritual teacher. I'm bigger. I can't put a title to that grander scale of what my soul is. Right. And I know that from that point on, I was like, come on, God, give me a title that really says, yes, this is me, you know? And that's what it really comes down to when we're in that place of simplicity. Like you said, the groundingness. Our souls know exactly what to do when we just listen. Just listening. So that's beautiful that this is when you got into personal development, got to tap into a deeper sense of your higher consciousness, which I call your divine essence, because that's who we are, is our divine essence. We came here whole. We may have come here, well, we did come here with karmic past issues that we have to deal with in this lifetime. So that was one of your issues, most likely, that you were sick in a past life. You had to come in here and deal with that sickness. And look at you came up thriving. I would never think that you were 200 and whatever pounds you said you were, because you look svelte, you look beautiful, you look radiating, you look like the sun is coming from inside of you, outside of you. And it's like, wow, we need to hit rock bottom sometimes to recognize who we truly are from that point. Mm-hmm. So how is it that you help your clients right now? And, where are they when they first come to you?
Yeah, it's been interesting because I've had, a pretty eclectic experience working with the health and wellness field. And, I've kind of dealt with people from all different walks of life, right? When I was at the Living Proof Institute working with Dr. Sachin Patel and his team, it was a functional medicine holistic health clinic. And, I've worked with clients who were experiencing, whether it be cancer, or autoimmune disease, or diabetes, in what shapes or form. But, I think really when people end up coming and finally, kind of waving that white flag and saying, I need help, like they're in that place. There's not a lot of people that will actually just take action for a preventative standpoint. That's the rare few, maybe, like people that are like, high performers and wanted to upgrade their life, and they're just always constantly working on doing better. But that was like a small percentage. A lot of the people who finally see any practitioner, they've gone to a pretty dark place, kind of like I've shared with you in my story, where it comes to a point where like they've tried to do it on their own. They've seen so many practitioners, they're all loss of hope, and they're like, I'm in pain. I don't know what to do, and I need someone who can support me. And that's usually the case of when people finally make that decision, because they don't see the benefit of paying for alternative care. Usually when we're in this, especially here in Canada, of like free healthcare. Yeah. Which is not usually the best healthcare, is the one that you have to pay for. But unfortunately, like until you need to see how many doctors or not get the answers, then you finally seem like, okay, maybe I should try some other stuff, and that's usually the case where I see people.
Isn't that interesting that I always say people will invest on a Friday night of getting so ripped or whatever it is, but they don't invest in their health. They don't invest in feeling good on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or a Monday. Like, it's one of those things that has always boggled my brain. Because I've done nutrition and I was a personal fitness trainer, funny enough, because now I can't even get my butt to the gym. I always have to manipulate my mind for that. But the nutrition aspect, I'd say to people, like, seriously, you're worried about the increase of bananas, but you're buying those chips that have tax on them. Like, really take a good look at yourself and look at yourself as an investment, getting this body once. This is your body now. You're never going to get it again. So how are you going to treat it? And it's interesting that I had to go through the same journey too. That's why I could talk about it. And it's been like 22 years, but it's like, I invested money. Even when I didn't have money, I found money to get myself my supplements, the assistance I needed, the so-called healthcare that didn't serve my soul. But when I found the alternative stuff, it was like, it spoke my language. It was something that helped me get through so many, not only body, but my mind in tune again. And that's where, I don't know, give me your feedback on that, because I know that you see people always come to me when they're dead. I always get that. Why do you guys come to me when you're dying? Like, I know I'm the Messiah here, but come on, cut me a break, but like, give me your feedback on that. Cause sometimes I just tell people, why do you wait this long?
Yeah. I guess the first thing that comes to me when you ask that question is, when you kind of peel back the layers of the onion, you can say, and take a look at where most of these people are in their life, it really comes back to the unfortunate way our society is living. It's normal and average to be able to be, stressed, unwell, and just kind of pushing it till the meat starts falling off. And you can simply take a look at just by standing in a street corner in like the middle of our city and just observe, not without judgments or anything, but just you can see where people are at, of how fast they're moving and how stressed they are and how too many things that they've taken on. And it's just like, like that's one place to start. And then we have another system that tells you that everything is outside of yourself. It's not within you. So like healthcare is looking at it as like these fast, quick solutions as opposed to kind of getting grounded in the basics. And then I also kind of look at it in a way where the education system doesn't teach us like these foundational principles of actually nurturing and caring for ourselves. So, everything is taught outside, and all the things that are really important, we need to learn on our own. So I think the big part is really like that misguidance, and what we're seeing around us is just, we're a sick and unwell society, and it's almost like okay to be like that. Yeah. Like the statistics are pretty crazy. I don't know how it is in Canada. I remember reading something like even, I think it was like in North America, it's like 7 out of like 10 people will be like overweight. And like out of 7 of those, like 3 of them, I don't know if it's like they'll have like diabetes or some sort of chronic illness or something like that, right? So it's just like statistically speaking, like this is what's going on. And I can go on and tell you all the reasons in the food system and everything like that. But I think like that's the thing. It's like, oh gosh, like it just, you have to break out. You have to break out of this conventional way and start seeing that there's different options, and it's a lot more simple than we actually need. Like, I think that's the best part. It's really going back to the basics of like just returning to nature, it's just like walk more, sleep more, drink right, eat real food. It's like, it's so simple, but yet it's not, Yeah,
we've been so manipulated in our minds to not believe that the simple way is the best way, that it has to be difficult. I want to go back to the food guide here that you were talking about, because we just changed our food guide here in Canada. And I was like, I don't know why anyone would follow the food guide to begin with. Like, why are you following this piece of paper? They're telling you how many things to eat, when you should really be listening again to your own body.
Yeah.
And looking outside of ourselves. And, when I saw everyone, how excited they were with this food guide change, I was like, really? I know you all don't eat what the food guide is telling you, but why are you so excited about this? And I understand that it's educational piece, that a lot of people that don't know about, the food standards of what you should eat, it's a good starting for them. And that's why I see all these nutritionists all excited for this change. Right. And I thought, why don't we all just create our own food guide instead of wait for the government to create it? Because really, at the end of the day, the government is killing us. So and I'm saying this with complete love in my heart, because the chemtrails that are going on there, what they're feeding our soil, the wax that they're putting on our fruits in the grocery store, all these E. coli in our lettuces, which I don't understand, like, it blows my brain. So I want to talk about food, because food is extremely important. And I know that through your movement that I see you do, and food is a huge component for you, because I know that in your room you do some great cooking in your house.
Oh yeah, definitely. So no, I think the relationship with food is probably by far like one of the most important and foundational principles that we need to really get grounded and rooted in. Even my approach as well too is that, there's no one or right answer. I do acknowledge the fact that I think that the Canadian Food Guide is definitely going to the right direction of promoting, the healthier, like, larger amounts of produce and vegetables and stuff like that in the diet, and eating a little bit more plant-based. That's great, but I think we're, again, like really missing the point of it being in a personal experience. There's no really right or wrong around that. I find some of the most simplest things is about even just changing the relationship and how we connect with food. I remember Michael Pollan mentioning one thing, I forgot from what, but if anyone wants to change their relationship with food, just watch any of that guy's stuff on Netflix or read any of his books. Like, he's amazing. But he was just talking about like the healthiest people are just ones who are actually cooking their own food. It's plain and simple as that. Like, the higher percentage of people, whether it be like 70-80% that are like healthier, the ones who connect and know what they're cooking are by far healthier, because exactly what you're putting in. and you're choosing exactly what you're eating. And when we give that power for other people to decide for us, that doesn't work. Like there's all, especially right now, it's like the way the nutrition and health and wellness field is, it's like the new politics and religion. It's only creating further separation with people as opposed to bringing us together. And you know what? There's no one right answer. And you are unique in your own nature. You come from a different space and place in the world. It's like, for example, like there's I think a book by Weston A. Price, and they make a comparison, and they're talking about like people who lived in their natural habitats. And they would, for example, someone who's like an Inuit or something like that, who lives in like really cold climate, like physiologically their ancestors in that environment there, like there's no plants and stuff like that around. Like all they can eat is like fat and blubber, and like they thrive off these diets. And then you give this person a different diet that's like from someone who's like an equatorial type, who's in a warm climate. Like that doesn't work for their physiology. So get rid of the dogmas, just kind of see what works for you. Of course, there's different kind of like methodologies you can test, but simply as like tracking what you eat and seeing how you feel, making those adjustments and really tuning into our body wisdom. Our body knows exactly everything that we need to know. And they talk about the gut being like your second brain, right? And how we literally have more like neurons and connections in our gut than our spinal cord, the information that it processes. And tie that even to like yogic things, or even these principles around like your dantian, or even that area. Like there is a seat of wisdom there. And if you're 20 years old, you're 30 years old, your body has already kind of filtered and told you like what foods work and what doesn't work, and you get reactions through your symptoms. Yeah. Right? So it's like simple things. Does that feel good? Do you feel good or you don't? It's like, forget about your diet or your plan. It's just, let's talk about like, how's that working for you?
Not everything is a one size fits all type of thing. And I love that you said, build a healthy relationship with food, because, I know that I would eat sometimes when I was stressed out, when I was angry. Well, right there, I'm not digesting my food correctly. When my mind was all over the place and wasn't centered into being in the present moment to eat my food, I knew I wasn't digesting correctly. And this is something that I've always said this: you're better off eating McDonald's in a happier way than eating healthy food in an angry way, because it's not going to digest. And trust me, I've never eaten McDonald's in my life. I cried as a kid when my mom told me she's going to take me there. I was never a McDonald's person. So I'm just saying that because I know that there might be someone listening to this that eats that kind of takeout food. And at the end of the day, happiness comes when good digestion is there as well. So happiness and good digestion work in harmony with one another on such a different level. So I love that you said, build that relationship with food, because sometimes I know women, sometimes they eat when they're, going through stress, or sometimes they eat if they're going through a breakup and, they just want to be left alone. They'll just shove their face in food. I've been there. I'm an ice cream person and a chocolate person. Like, I had to go through that. I had to break up with chocolate. Like, I was a chocoholic. I would go to the dollar store and get myself 3 bars for $1. And that was what I would enjoy every day for years. Yeah. Until I had to say enough is enough.
No, I totally get it. Like I've actually, a lot of the big parts I've actually worked with. And again, it's like you kind of attract who the people that you've, similar challenges that you've gone through. And I definitely had a point where I had a poor relationship with not just food in particular, but a point where it became addiction to actually mass emotions and symptoms. So a big part of the work I do is being able to change that. Like that's huge. We have people who are bingers, or the ones that eat and want to force themselves to get that out of their system, and it just becomes so hyper vigilant, where it's just it now becomes a scary relationship, where this should be something that's pleasurable and a blessing to nourish your body, and now becomes something then out of fear. So yeah, I hear you that in every way, for sure.
I totally get you. Bulimia is huge. I know my cousin went through bulimia. I went through anorexia. So going through anorexia, I remember just eating an apple and being like, oh, I'm full. you know, I was dating this guy at the time and we would go out for dinner all the time. And it was so interesting because he never paid attention to how I would just move my food around the plate. I wouldn't be eating it. I would just be moving it so it looks like I am eating it. Right now I put it on, hey babe, you want some more food? I'm full. And I didn't even eat anything. And I remember his friend said to him and to me, actually more to him, that I think your girlfriend's anorexic. And he's like, no, she eats all the time, dude. Like this girl doesn't stop eating. And then I was like, and then one day I said, let's go out for dinner. I think it was like 2 a.m. in the morning. I was in the club industry at that time. And I went out and he goes, so how long you been moving your food around for? And I was like, oh shit, he caught on. Right. So when we go, I had such a negative relationship with food because I was obese. I was like, 200 pounds almost. And through that, I was like, I'm no longer eating because as Europeans, my family would shove food in my mouth, or if I didn't finish the plate, I wouldn't be able to leave, or like all these stupid imprints they put on top. As I say, it's stupid because it's like when my body is full, it doesn't matter if you want me to finish the plate, I'm done. Right. And that teaches us control. It teaches us boundaries. It teaches us to tune in with ourselves. Like so many lessons come from food. And it was just one of those things. So when you were going through this journey, was food the first thing that you worked on, or was moving your body the first thing that you worked on?
Food definitely was the core of it for sure. It's just something that's always been a big part of me. Like I always joke around that I'm a fat kid at heart, because like, don't let the visual fuel you. Like I love food, but yeah, that was probably like one of the entry points, because when I first like lost my weight initially, it was just about like trying all the different diets, and I tried like every single fad that was out there, and it just came again a little bit more of bringing in all the other components slowly but surely, right? Yeah.
It's so funny how we, I'm listening to you and I'm like, yeah, I've been down that road. I've tried every diet out there, even the ones that are not even popular right now that I learned about, and they taught me so much. My favorite, I don't want to call it diet, but it was my favorite lifestyle change that I created was the 5-ingredient max. If I bought anything outside of the perimeter, like anything in the middle, it had to have only 5 ingredients, and I had to be able to actually pronounce the ingredients. And that was like, I would be in the grocery store for hours because nothing really has 5 ingredients. Like an apple is just an apple. Banana is just a banana. A mango is just a mango. Lettuce is just lettuce. But when you're going in those aisles, it's like what you're picking up and throwing in your cart. Take a second look at that, because at the end of the day, you probably don't have a clue what's in it. Yeah, it tastes great. It's like, love on the lips and, a lifetime of happiness on the hips too, right? But at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's, when people say, I don't know, I eat healthy, but I don't know how I got sick. Well, most likely something was an imbalance in your body. And I could guarantee you it happened in the middle part of the grocery store where no one should be spending any time in that part. Everything's on the perimeter. So that's beautiful. When you change your relationship with food, because I want to talk about the mind a little bit. I know this is Awaken Men Monday, and this is a good podcast for just about anyone out there that we are connecting with right now. But when you change your connection with food, how did your mind change after that?
Yeah. I think, again, it's just the transformation of just releasing the fear around it and making it a loving relationship. I think that was like the most important thing, where everything was done before out of like having to fit in like a specific way of doing things. And it was like so rigid, and it was just so stressful, where, even when I was studying as like to become a holistic nutritionist, like I became so overly analytical of myself, because like you have so much conflicting views, right? Again, speaking about like, one teacher is like all about like plants, and the other teacher is all about like eating paleo. And then, you're taught to like figure out like, oh, what's the most optimal diet, or, like what are your flaws? And that just became like a whole bunch of criticism, that's what happened for me. Like it was just being so overly critical and judgmental. But I think that also kind of reflects into, it's just like with anything, how you do anything is how you do everything. And, our relationship with our food actually can reflect our emotional experiences. So, if someone is constantly eating fast and they're just shoveling food down their mouth, or, you're overeating or you're stress eating, it's like, where else are you, masking things? Where else are you trying to numb yourself? Where else are you moving too fast? And when I started to realize like all these things were happening, it was like, okay, like, let me just slow down. Let me take a breath before I eat, let me give gratitude. Let me avoid the distractions. And then it just became like a beautiful one. I always look forward to eating every single meal because it's one of the greatest pleasures that we choose to do at least 2 to 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Right. And most people just are very automatic, with that experience. It's just like, you're just plowing through it. And it's just like, why don't you taste it? Why don't you chew it? Why don't you, savor it? Give yourself 20, 30 minutes, breathe. And it can be such a blissful experience because it's one of the greatest acts of self-love and kindness that you give to yourself. Something that you are consuming is what you're choosing to embody, is who you are becoming. It is what you are using to fuel you and bring forth whatever you want to create in this world. And, that's it. It's like, most of us don't have that kind of perspective around food. And that's the relationship that I started to choose to engage with. Right. And that's it. Everything is just a relationship. So, maybe that your next meal will tell a lot about, who you are and some of your greatest challenges. Right. So I think that's it, make it as loving as possible and enjoy the pleasures of it. Like it shouldn't be something that you have to suffer with. Right. Like, I think that was a big one. Like my style of cooking and even how I eat these days, like I say, it's like healthy comfort food, never compromising flavor, always using just quality ingredients. And that way, add in the mindfulness, add in the presence with your food, and then actually have foods that actually nurture you and sustain you, that your body recognizes as real and becomes satiated. We can avoid a lot of the overeating. We can avoid a lot of the making the poor choices because we actually feel so connected to that. And it's like, I wish that for everybody. I wish we can feel that much love and appreciation for our food, and turn that Snickers bar into like making love with your lover, right? If you have to start that way, some people I can literally just say like, don't even change the way you eat. Like, don't even change the foods that you eat. Actually, like they're like, what? It's like, no, just slow down and eat more mindfully. And I've seen people like get rid of like allergies or tolerances or reactions to food. That's the association. That's so deep. So if anyone's listening out there and like that is the fear that you have around your body and the weight and all that stuff, like that's actually causing your weight. That's causing more pain. That's causing more stress. So, get back to the basics because, like, food is here to support us, like Mother Nature, and Pachamama is here to provide us this amazing sustenance. Like, just feel that, feel your relationship, right? Don't just keep it in the mind.
It's so true. It's so true. Like as you're speaking about food, all I could taste is different flavors in my mouth, like Indian and Greek and Italian and Mexican, all just coming like, and it doesn't have to be this fast food way of, eating. It's you making love in your kitchen to your food. And it tastes so much better because as you're like, I talk to my food as I'm cooking. My friends love coming over here when I'm cooking. It's like, I'm constantly cooking. I'm like, oh, you're going to taste so good.
Oh yeah, man, I got to come over for your place for dinner.
Anytime, you're more than welcome to. It's like, I literally talk to my food and I'm like, what do you want me to throw? What spices do you want? And I'll hear like grab sage and grab oregano and get a garlic and have some salt. And my friend's like, what are you doing? I'm like, if you want the recipe, write it down because this is never going to be the same again.
That's exactly how I cook too. I never cook with recipes. It's just like, I don't know, whatever is in the fridge and whatever's in the spice cabinet, and we'll just make something happen,
Yeah. And I'm always making that, like that taste when I'm cooking. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm tasting my food before it's even cooked. And they're just like, okay, one flew off the cuckoo's nest again. Here she goes again, you know? But then all of a sudden I'm feeding everyone and myself, and they're like, oh shit, this tastes so good. What'd you put in that? I'm like, I have no idea. Just a bunch of love. That's all it is love.
Yeah.
And it's so true. So, Angelito, do you work with men and women? Do you predominantly work with men? Everybody like?
I work with both. I work with both in my life. But actually, just from my experience, it's funny, I've probably worked with more women than men. And it's actually just even speaking out, like, I know we're speaking to the awakened men, but it's funny because with men, it can be one of our greatest downfalls to have that pride of thinking that we can do it all on our own, and when we're actually struggling. And if you look at the health and wellness industry, the majority of the people that are getting health coaching, that are investing in themselves, that are learning and taking that extra step is actually women, right? So I would say 80% or more of my clients have actually been women. Yeah. So yeah, but men as well too. I've worked with men as well, but it's like they really want to make some change. They're really going through like some struggles before they do that. But yeah, I find that's like seriously like more power to the women who are willing to invest in themselves and make that change in their life, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like men, if anyone out there that's listening to the men, and I mean the women, we all have a divine masculine inside of us, but men, we need you to live. All of my dad passed away, and all of my good friends' fathers passed away. And it was so that thing, like, why are all our fathers passing away? And it's something that I kind of sat and thought about it, because I find men, you're hiding in the suffering rather than allowing yourself to step into it and say, you know what? I'm going to go meet with a homie, my boy, my brother, whatever you want to call that man that's going to support you in this process. Connect with them and release the suffering, release the childhood imprints, release what your parents taught you of who you should be as a man, because it's false. They lied to you. They put imprints in you that are not who you are. So when you start connecting with the true essence, your divine essence of who you are, trust me when I tell you, you'll be more alive. You'll feel more connected. You'll be radiating. And let me tell you, the big man between your legs will be rocking for a few hours.
Straight up, right? Take care of yourself. And of course, that's a big thing on men's minds, right? Of their sexual performance and stuff. And it's like, when you're healthy, when you're doing these things like eating well and meditating and grounding, like you'll perform in extraordinary ways, and it'll be more pleasurable because you actually get beyond just the physical sensations. You really start to lose yourself in the experience with your partner, and whoever you're sharing that with. But like for any of the brothers out there really that are, they're struggling, I know you're speaking about like to reach out and be there, but here's our biggest challenge. It's like how many people can actually hold that space for you, to go there. And that's the reason why we have the challenge, because we're told to not cry and to, suck it up and be a man, when it's like, okay, so like, just don't show that and just continuously like suffer and not admit to like your weaknesses and your challenges. But, like for me, like life didn't really transform and start to get better until I actually started having community and, positive male reflections and mentorships and guidance. So it's like, that's a question that a lot of men are facing. It's like, where do I go? Like most of my bros are just kind of in this old paradigm that's, kind of just like all about like, like how much girls can you score? And, don't talk about like your vulnerabilities and your weaknesses. So, like that's probably like one of the biggest things, like, hey, like, what do we do then? Where do we go?
And that's really, at the end of the day, that's what made me start this Awakened Men Monday series, because I see all the beautiful men, including yourself out there, that have gone through the adversity, that had to fight the mind, that had to deal with the body, that, saw the light in their darkness. And I know that there's a lot of men and women suffering out there. And this is the resources that I want to bring out to those men and out to those women, regardless if you're in Canada, in the US, Australia, wherever you are in the world, there's resources everywhere. And this is why I created this series, to say you are not alone.
Mm.
If you feel aligned, connect with Angelito. If you don't feel aligned with him, look into him. Follow him on social media. See what he's doing on a daily basis. What are his rituals? Start connecting to one thing at a time. You don't take 10 breaths at once. You take one breath at a time. You
Mm-hmm.
take one step. You need to learn how to crawl first before you could walk, before you could run. So take those small steps. This is for men and women. This is for humanity. We are one. It's the I am that I am. We are everything. We have masculine and feminine inside of us. And it's just a matter of, I want to talk to the bros here, you know, because I love my men and I want you all healthy because you might be my man one day, but you never know. But it's like not even for me, for even all the women out there, if you know, having a man in your life, that's what turns you on, or having a partner, whatever you want to call your significant other. Be healthy for yourself, because we always want to nurture someone else, but yet we forget about ourselves. And if we don't take care of ourselves, you're never going to be able to nurture anyone else the way you want to do it. Then you have another box of issues that are going to show up. So Angelito, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I didn't even know how this conversation was going to go. This is like 3 times the charm. And every time we did this, something different showed up. So yeah. I'm so excited that, you know, the Holy Trinity was here with us as usual to have this beautiful conversation and to see your light shine and to get your wisdom and grace and how you are bringing your light to humanity is just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure chatting with you, sister. I love you and who you are and your love and excitement for life and where your heart is, you know, because it's incredible to be able to, you know, hold space for men and women out there. So yeah, thank you for being you.
Thank you. You know, it brings these types of things bring actually more happiness, and money can't buy this type of happiness.
No, it's all about the connection.
Buy me nice trips and great other things, but this deep heart feeling that I get when I see people thrive, you can't put a price tag to that. And this is why I do it. This is my purpose. This is me living on my purpose fully. You know, so thank you for being on this path with me. Thank you for being on this journey. I'm coming to your house one day for dinner. You could come over to my house.
Yeah. Deal. It's
all
done.
of your friends have all been on this. Well, not all your friends, but a good amount of your bros have been on the podcast. And this is the most amazing thing. It's just one love all around. So for anyone that is feeling connected and aligned, regardless of your masculine or feminine, if you're whatever you want to be, guess what? You are just that at this moment. You're actually stardust, that you have to take care of yourself, open up your heart, feel connected and aligned to connect with Angelito. All of his socials are in the show notes below. Connect with him, follow him on his socials, see what he's up to. He speaks from the heart. He's radiating love and light and just prosperity. And it doesn't mean prosperity as in money, but it means prosperity as in wisdom, awakening, or money as well, whatever you want to receive from him. So thank you for listening to Unfuck Your Mind, the Awakened Men Monday series, and we look forward to connecting with you again. Bye for now.